I can't believe how quickly this day has snuck up on me. It's time to send the American Shmeemobile to America. My Ford GT is heading back to the United States. Now today, we need to actually go and drop it off and prepare it for shipping, which means we've got a few problems ahead of us. But first up is to load it into the trailer with Turbo Transport to take it to MyCarImport, who have been responsible for a number of the movements of different Shmeemobiles in and out of the country before. But then starts the complicated bit, because a few things I've never done before. Firstly, we need to disconnect the battery. To do that means taking out the headlight, and I don't know how to do that right now. Secondly, it's then locked in park because it has no power, and we need to get it into the container. Thirdly, is it even going to fit into the container, considering quite how wide this car actually is? And then fourthly, once it's in, how do you even get out of it, given there is no hope to open the doors, and it's a very small window? So we're going to see how this day unfolds and bring you along as we send this on its way to the USA and tell you a little bit more about the plans ahead. Fresh from the visit down to Quicksilver, where we took this the other day to go and install the new V2 GTLM style exhaust, this car is heading back to the US. It was last there 5 years ago, back in 2019. Time has flown by, but we're going to be going to some new places, some familiar ones as well, but it's not, of course, the first Shmeemobile to head away from this continent. This went back then. My Shelby GT500 was purchased in Florida and spent much of its life in America as well. The AMG GT Black Series went firstly out to the Middle East, had some fun with it out in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, before it then went over towards the US for our mega tour as well. Also, the Zenvo recently went out to America to visit Car Week, which this will of course be going to later this year, but it's time. It is the ultimate, the most permanent of Shmeemobiles, and it's heading back, and we've got some big plans ahead because of course my dark horse is over there as well, and well, I'm feeling a little bit of the supercar and the muscle car for some fun together in the coming months. Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello, and welcome back to the channel where it's time for the GT to go stateside. Before we get this moving, there are a number of things to have to think about, some of which I've done, some of which we still need to do, and we don't actually have very much time for our slot to get this loaded, which I'll explain later. But to send a car around the world, firstly, you need to make sure it's got very low fuel. So on the way back from Quicksilver, thankfully, we actually got it down to about 1/4 of a tank, just under, which means this is technically good to go. We also need to unplug the smart charger, and in the case of this, because it's a European car, it means that the charger we have is actually 220 to 240 volts, which obviously doesn't work with 110 out in the United States, so that's going to be staying at home rather than packing it up, as I normally do, to take with me, completely forgetting that it's going to be a total waste of time. So I'll pack that away, make sure it's nice and tidy also. We've got to take a few things out of the car. I mean, I can leave in a couple of little pieces that are basically part of it and any instructions and that type of stuff. But down behind the seat, I actually still have some of the things to do with the Luette artwork that we did with Wycliffe Galleries. So we're obviously going to be leaving that here. Pop it on the F1 car just for a moment. We need to, well, actually fold the seat back, make sure I can actually squeeze in there. And the other thing at the back of the car is that the number plate I have on it has gone a little bit moldy, which some of you might have noticed on the previous video. It's just delaminated slightly. So we will pop this off and go get that changed. I've got a new one ready to pop on here before we send it over. It also could do with a tiny little bit of a wipe down, because I'd like it to arrive clean at the other end for the first outing we have with it. Brand new plate then, ready to go straight on here. Looking pretty. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Famous quote from one Mr. Henry Ford. Try and line this up and hopefully get it straight first go. But it should be adjustable. There we go. That looks much prettier than what we had on here before for the purposes of this little adventure it's about to go on. I tell you what, that looks really cool. Sat right here. These new tips, 3D printed, looking absolutely lovely. Top work by Quicksilver to make those. This is where in steps the Topaz Car Care Quick Detailer, because it's not filthy, but I like the car to get to the other end not quite so dirty. I mean, if you look down here, right, it's just all of that grime that comes up from 100 or 200 miles out on the road. But luckily, this will all wipe away nice and easily, and this thing will be looking good. I don't want to completely give it a wash, because if we give it a wash, it's then going to be wet going into a metal box, which will get very humid when it's out over the ocean, and that won't be good. So we will run over it this way, do a proper job, probably off camera, and then make it nice and tidy, ready for Turbo to arrive in a minute. From the body to the windows, Topaz glass cleaner, because of course we need to make it look a little bit more presentable for what's coming up with this thing. And then we'll get it loaded and get this journey underway. Before we get into the plans ahead for this, I want to show you a few things which I'm pretty sure most GT owners don't even know. Imagine the scenario, battery has been disconnected, there's no power, so it's not like you can just press the button here to open the engine compartment. What you do is you take the physical key, and there's actually a keyhole under here where if I push that in, you can then twist it and it pops open the engine bay. The reason you need to do that is because in here you then have this funky contraption that is provided with the car, which is used to poke through under this grommet there to then manually hold the gearbox in neutral, because otherwise it would be locked in park. So we're going to need that today. I remember being shown the process when I got the car originally, when I had the induction tour back at original delivery day at the Goodwood Motor Circuit. But today it's actually going to come in useful. Now, the immediate plan with the car, as I've mentioned, is to head to Texas, to go to Circuit of the Americas, to join the GT1 Sports Club, to drive this car at the United States F1 GP circuit. It didn't go to Texas when I was out there before. We did all of the East Coast, we did all of the West Coast, but very little of the middle. And having the Dark Horse means we have a car that can take the luggage. Remember the last time I wanted to do a road trip with this? We popped a roof box on the top so that we could actually take some stuff with us, because otherwise it's literally impossible. So the plan is to be able to use the two cars together, to go on a bit of an adventure, still planning out the exact route. Of course, it takes a couple of weeks for this to get over there ahead of the event in the middle of May, but going flat out around COTA in this sounds like a good time to me. Of course, the GT Black Series, which is now over here, has also been to Circuit of the Americas, which is kind of crazy to think about. I joined a track day with that car in Texas, I want to say a year and a half ago now. Time flies by, but this is just about ready. It's just about ready to go. It's going to be strange not having it here at the Shmeemuseum for the upcoming period. Before Tony arrives, you've possibly already spotted this. We've had some changes up here. We've shuffled a few things around, like a grandstand at a motorsport venue, right? They're new partners of the Shmeemuseum, but probably the most often requested board to go up here has now arrived, and Turbo doesn't know about it yet. So when he gets here, we're going to play Spot the Difference and see how long it takes until he sees that that's changed. In comes the trailer. It wasn't that long ago that the Zenvo came back from Germany in Turbo's Brian James Transporter trailer, but Ram, of course, reversing that back so we can load up inside.
Morning.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
We need to play a game of Spot the Difference.
Spot the difference.
There's something inside here.
Something inside
Something's changed. Something's changed. Something's different. That was quick. That was impressive.
Awesome.
Long overdue, right?
Oh, thank you for that.
I'm actually really impressed with how quickly you just spotted that. I thought you might like scan all of the cars and work out.
I did a quick scan. I was like, what's missing? And then I was like, well, nothing's missing because we brought the Zenvo back. Oh wow, that's...
Yeah, it looks cool, doesn't it?
It does look cool.
We had a little bit of a change around. But today, it's this one, again.
My favourite.
How many times have you moved it, driven it? I mean, it's 10, 15, 20 by now. Quite a few.
Yeah, I'll say 20. Yeah.
At least. At least. Cool. It is obviously super exciting that this journey is now getting ready to begin. It's important with the transport to make sure it's safe and secure, always in safe hands with Tony, but if you want to be safe and secure on the internet, that's where the sponsor of today's video steps in, Surfshark. An enclosed trailer like this protects the Ford GT from potential stone chips on the road, from the rain, because today's weather is pretty awful, but also from prying eyes. And that's when you are using the World Wide Web, Surfshark can protect your data from those who might be watching. I'm just making sure that I have all of the documents ready for the car's adventure ahead. And of course, that means sharing a lot of sensitive information about the car itself, my passport, travel itineraries, and as such, being connected to a VPN means that nobody can snoop on what I'm sharing. This is particularly important when using all sorts of public Wi-Fi networks, as I often do on my travels. As you can imagine, for a trip like this, it means booking a lot of flights, a lot of hotels, and by using a VPN, I can remove the geographical restrictions to set it to the desired country to make sure that I'm able to save the most amount of money possible, which is of course a big benefit when booking this many different things. Not only that, I'm also a big football fan, and it means when I'm on the road, I can keep up with what's going on at home in the league in the UK. And one of the best things is that you can use it on all sorts of different devices, including a games console. Plus, you can share your account with all of your friends. But shh, don't tell Surfshark I told you that. It's time then to close up the trailer. The Ford GT is ready to go, and it's time for you to check out Surfshark. There's no risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so what are you waiting for? Plus, with my coupon code SHMEE, you get 3 months for free as well. Give Surfshark a go, but for now, we need to go and get the GT on the way to America. Trailer outside, shutter going down, and no Ford GT at the Shmeemuseum for a while. In fact, of the permanent Shmeemobiles that have lived on this side of the garage, that has been the only car here since I got the keys to this barn. It will be back, but not for a while. Gone and an absent space for the time being, although we can get things tidied up. For now, we're heading out into the MSRT Transit Custom for the journey up. Well, for today, it looks like I am riding in the back of the van. So let's get ready to drive ahead. Well, look what we've found. Mr. Turbo Transport on the motorway. That's deja vu from our recent trip back from Germany and a half. But hey, good times. You there, Tony? We have returned back here at MyCarImport, where of course we are currently without the trailer, but it will be here very shortly. Tony arrives. Welcome. Had a fill up along the way. Then we'll get the GT out of the trailer and onto the ramp to progress from here, with British weather doing what British weather does. But it was down here where the GT500 arrived, the GT Black Series arrived, and where the GT is going to be being loaded a little bit later on. It's time then to pull this back out of the trailer. It sounds so good. Love that new Quicksilver exhaust. And bang on cue, the sun has popped out, which is rather fabulous. Some interesting cars around. Case in point, lots of things being imported. That's actually from Canada. The M5 just there. Get this outside. That sounds absolutely brilliant. And looks beautiful. So we're going inside to the workshop where we have the ramp available for this procedure, hopefully to get right with ease. Liquid red looking lovely now with the sunshine out on it. Sunshine and raindrops, as you do. Very cool. Technically, because America, we might not even need that on, but I am going to leave it because it's just how the car looks. Same physical front plate that it was wearing when it went to the US last time, but obviously now with a different rear one. But the Ironman spec GT heading back to North America. One thing that I am aware of is that these Sport Cup 2s are now approximately 5 years old. 2019 tyres. They are reaching the end of their life. I actually got those tyres to replace the ones that used to be on it when it was at Galpin in Los Angeles in California. So maybe, while they're not expired yet, we might have to finish them off and get them replaced before it comes back home again, which would be kind of funky to have that done again in America. Brad, does this mean you're working on a Ford GT?
It does. It is just wheel off and then headlights out, but it counts, right?
So step one is to access the battery. The way to do that is front right wheel off, access through the arch liner, headlights should slide out, battery terminals are inside, apparently.
So we've been told.
Sounds simple, sounds very simple. Obviously the headlight then needs packaging for the Transit, but then the terminals can be protected but also accessible, so we can actually drive it in. It's not that it has to be parked right now with absolutely no power. Fingers crossed that all works. I like how you colour matched the tool there to the centre caps, you know, the gold.
Of course, of course.
One front wheel off.
You got it? Yeah.
This is where it's always interesting just to have a look, especially when you see the components and the way they engineered this thing. Absolutely crazy. Look at this. All the carbon fibre pieces, the cooling that actually comes through from the front through there. Mega, mega stuff. The thing I need to say right now is this is unbelievably light. That is a 20-inch wheel with a tyre on it, and it shouldn't be that light. But hey, these are impressive wheels. Awesome things, but we need to say goodbye because Mr. Turbo is rolling out. Thank you, Tony. See you later. See you very soon for a lot more. Onwards. Wheel arch liner ready. Simple.
Straight out, and that should hopefully reveal
Yeah.
headlights.
I mean, it's really simple when you look underneath this thing. It's the lamp unit just held in by 2 or 3 bolts.
I think literally 3 bolts, which now they're loose, you can just do by hand. And hopefully it comes out nice and easy.
And it goes forwards or backwards?
Backwards, I believe.
Into the wheel arch. And I'm taking notes here for the reassembly at the other end. Headlight, of course, taped up to protect, but that literally slides backwards. It is PPF, by the way, this. So it's protected. That is very helpful.
That makes me feel a little bit happier doing
And there's the battery. Super easy.
Should we put this on eBay?
No. We'll need to buy another one. It'll cost a lot more than you're going to get on eBay for that one. We have 13, I think. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 push clips. 3 of those to hold the headlight in. And that's basically it. Now protecting the headlight mount point, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. Same with the battery in a second, but it will be arch liner back in, headlight packaged inside, and on we go. Then simple as you like. 13 clips back in. It's fun how the arch liner is 2 pieces. Makes it a little bit easier. However, I do need to point out that the headlight is enormous. I thought there was a chance that might fit into the luggage space in the car, but no way. This is a big thing. So wrapped up and then inside the car for the transit. While we put the 3 bolts back in here, look, made in England. A lot of parts of this car are made in England. In fact, the GT40s were made in England. So it's a fun nod that like the interior, steering wheel, paddles, that type of stuff was made in England. And the headlamps were made in England. So that, as I said, is a big old piece. But now we can package it up and make sure it's safe. Little change of plan. What we're going to do is put these actually in a nice little MyCarImport pouch to make sure that these are safe, because they might otherwise get damaged or something when they're installed on the bottom of the light. So if they go in here, then we know these are good, and this can be taped into the back of the headlight somewhere. Should we tape it on the other side, just in there? Maybe even take a little picture. That has the bolts. One wheel back on, nearly. Almost. Grab all of those. Make sure it's held in place. This has been as easy as hoped, I think is what we can say.
Yeah, we were told that it's fairly simple, and it was fairly simple. I mean, I wouldn't choose just go and work on the Ford GT randomly, but it's done the job nicely.
Yeah, not bad. It is now time to go drive this in. And of course, at this point in time, we still have power in it. It's loosened, so that's going to be easier. But let me step in here, because my exit in a moment is going to be through the window, which is going to be an interesting challenge. But nonetheless, let's start this up again. It's time to go in, which means lift system up, and this is going to be a narrow run up the ramp. Jump ahead, I've actually got out of the car, because it turns out that gap through the window isn't so easy. I squeezed out to take a photo and wasn't easily squeezing back in, so we've swapped around. Brad's now in the car, which means it's time to start it and pull it in again. And yeah, unfortunately, can't control that. The rain started now, but I guess we expected it. And we're all going to have many hands on deck now pulling this inside, as he does it very slowly, steadily and carefully into a box. My Ford GT is going into a 20-foot container to carry it across the world, which I always find absolutely crazy to do this. Gosh, it's narrow in there. It's very narrow. The Ford GT is now inside a big metal box. It did thankfully fit, and the team are now strapping it down. So there are some chocks to hold it in place, and obviously the straps and things to make sure it does not move around while it's at sea. Brad and I have meanwhile been going over it, drying it down, because it gets pretty humid inside a container, and any moisture we can dry off the surface from it being outside just now is certainly going to help. Also, by the way, the key travels in this pouch attached to the container. It always needs to be attached in some form to travel with the car. The last thing would be they get to the other end and they've got no way to get it out. You could leave it inside, but then it runs the risk of flying around, so you just want to be a little bit careful with it. But there were these 4 challenges earlier. The first was the battery. Solution to that, of course, has been found. The second was the headlight. That was actually pretty easy to pull out up front. Third was getting it into the container. And as you can see, it was a pretty tight fit, but there are a couple of inches, I'm going to say, on each side, probably a total of around 6-7 inches spare space, so all easy on that front. And number 4 was getting out of the window, which was solved thanks to having Brad here to be able to squeeze out of that better than I could. So this has actually all gone pretty much to plan so far. It needs to be strapped down at the back, and at the other end reverse this whole procedure, and then it'll be ready to, well, go and drive in America again, which is fun. It's also fun to kind of track the numbers and shipping details of the container and see where it goes around the world. But yeah, that's not your normal sight, is it? Ford GT loaded inside big metal box to head across the world. This is absolutely typical. It's no longer raining. The sun is starting to poke through the clouds. This would have been a far better time to do it. We should maybe unstrap it and do all of this again and make a nicer video in the sunshine, but I don't think the guys here would be very happy with us if we did that. Yeah, just the way these things go, hey? Can't control the weather. At this point, I know one question is, why is this going in a container, not by air? Obviously, we flew the Zenvo out to the US and flew it back. The GT Black Series went by sea both times, well, to the US and back, and actually back from the Middle East. It flew to the Middle East. To be honest, for me, it all depends on 1, the cost, and 2, the timing. How much time do I have to get it to where I want it to be? So with something like this, when I know we've got about a month to go before the GT1 Sports Club, and it takes 10 to 14 days if you get a direct sailing across to the US, this is without time pressure, so it's much easier. Whereas the GT Black Series flew out to originally to Dubai, because at that point I needed it for something in the UK and there's something at the other end. And actually, when I took this to the US back in 2019, it was at Goodwood a few days before it flew to New York, thinking back to it. So in this particular instance, time is on side and the cost impact. So it's about double to fly versus sea. It depends on the value of the car. So once you get to something like the Zenvo, because of the extra insurance for sea, it's slightly more expensive to insure at sea than by air. The prices obviously converge slightly, but with this it would be about twice what I have paid to fly it. And when you consider each direction, it's a lot of money. So if I don't need necessarily to do that, I've always sent it by sea. Yes, it could potentially go wrong. There are lots of horror stories of containers getting lost at sea, but it is literally a very small number relative to the hundreds of millions of containers that get shipped every year. And there is a risk with flying. There's a risk when you walk across the road. There's a risk when you drive down the road. There's a risk with pretty much everything we do in life. And sometimes the fun and the rewards at the other end are worth it. And of course, there's insurance. So don't get me wrong, I would be absolutely devastated if I lost this car, but it is a car. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't be the worst thing that could ever happen. Anyway, still the rear wheels to strap down, but that's basically why it's in a container and not why it is strapped onto a pallet, which would be done for air. It would literally go onto a metal pallet, be strapped straight to it rather than effectively bolted to the wooden floor and easily loaded into the cargo belly of a plane. Whereas in this case, that sounded nice, Corvette that's been imported here. Yeah, this is the process and off it will go. This is now all strapped down, as you can see, safe and secure. It's been checked over, signed off, which means this can be driven forwards. The doors can get closed, it gets sealed, and then it only gets opened once this is safely at the other end. It's kind of clever how this works. The ramp just gets jacked up a little bit, obviously to effectively break the connection. It's one of the reasons for doing it here rather than at the port, is to avoid, for a very low car like this, the issues of actually getting up into the back of a truck. And then we have the time slot, so a couple of hours to do the loading before this is going to head, I think, directly to port, so we might even see it roll out and then catch it again later. It is really windy and horrible weather though right now. Truck is started, which means it's time, I think, for it to slightly pull forwards. It is funny, so this is a 20-foot container for a single car. Obviously you can get double length 40-foot containers and put 2 in, or you can even build contraptions inside to stack cars one above another and fit 3 or even 4 inside one, or you could even actually have them pivoted at weird angles, and you can do lots of different things. The shipping industry has developed many different solutions to this topic, that's a weird feeling. Imagine if it was going down the road like that. It is going to get sealed up in a moment, but that is quite unusual to see the car at least secured in the back of the container box like this. Get ready to close it up and say farewell. The first door closed. That's a strange feeling, knowing it's being locked away inside with a million different keyholes and locks and things. That one goes in. Bye bye GT. This is where it gets locked and sealed with a security lock. Means we know it's all as it was. That has to be actually smashed open. That seal completely locked up. I missed it on the video, but the way the truck extends and then the container sits basically over the middle of the axles was actually quite cool to see. Sorry it's not on camera. And the sun's popping back out again. We've had the worst luck with our timing today. British weather at its finest. Look at that. Grey and gloomy, but with pockets of sunshine over a container housing a Ford GT. Well, this is crazy. We're saying farewell to the truck and trailer, to the Ford GT. The next time I see the car that's inside there is going to be in the United States of America, which is quite crazy to think. Off it goes. That's so surreal. Oh dear. It's fun and games though, to know that I can drive my car when I get to a totally different continent. Such a bizarre, surreal feeling, sensation. Off it goes, just like that. Back to this beast we come, which means hopping into the back again, ready for the onward journey. Whew. Let's go see if we can catch up. Look what we found on the motorway. That is indeed the container. How funny is that? No one else has a clue that that contains the GT. That container has my car in it. How funny. Well, we're back at the Shmeemuseum, and now one car lighter, which is quite unusual, but that only means that there's some epic stuff ahead. And like I said earlier, first stop is going to be Texas. I'm thinking Houston, Dallas, Austin, maybe San Antonio, COTA, of course, with the GT1 Sports Club. But from there, a bit of a road trip initially to some private things, some cool stuff that we've got planned, but of course also trips out to Monterey Car Week. Of course, the action, excitement, and everything that comes with being in California in August. Then maybe later in the year, SEMA, perhaps some Ford GT owners type rallies, drives, things like that. Also, we've got Velocity Invitational coming up again. We've got some amazing stuff that I cannot wait for. So we might have an empty spot here now at the Shmeemuseum with some shuffling to come and move the cars around. But it means the Ford GT plus the Mustang Dark Horse out in America. That sounds pretty exciting to me. So a big thanks to the guys at MyCarImport for everything they've set up with the transport and the opportunity to take a little longer over it all today with everything we needed to do with the car. And then of course, making some video clips to share the experience, because I know this is an unusual thing. You might argue, why not just rent a car out there? And we've discussed this a bit in the past, especially with the likes of these two when they've been off on travels, but it would never make sense. And it's so much cooler to take your own car on something like this. An amazing, unbelievable experience still. Very, very exciting. And to be able to share what this is all like. So yeah, the GT adventure in America is soon to begin. Stay tuned for that. For now, we have a free space. And don't forget, you could get 3 months for free with Surfshark if you use my coupon code SHMEE. So all of the information is down below about that one. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this, I guess, first part of what's coming next over the following months and maybe even longer. We'll see what the future entails. For now though, that's all. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.